tell me a bit about yourself, about where you were born and stuff like that.
Sure. So my name is Dawit Shiferaw, and I was born in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and born and raised in the capital city, Addis Ababa. Went high school there, middle school there, college there. I have a law degree from Addis Ababa University, and also I practiced law for almost a year before I left my country of origin due to political reasons and become a refugee in Nairobi, Kenya, where I spent close to 2 years before I was resettled to the United States of America through an organization called IRC, International Rescue Committee. And I came to the US in 2013, end of 2013, middle of 2013. And ever since I've been here. Um, while here, this is my second job. My first job was at a, a non-governmental organization called Catholic Legal Immigration Network. I worked there as a paralegal, and now I'm working with IS Law Firm as an immigration paralegal since August 2022. Um, I'm married, three kids, uh, um, 10, 4, and 3 years old, a boy and two girls. And I've been married for the past 11 years. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
So were all of your kids born in the United States?
Yes, yes. All of my kids were born in the United States. One was born in Las Vegas, the firstborn. The other two was born in DC, Washington, DC.
And were you married when you got resettled, or where you started your journey as an immigrant, as a refugee?
The marriage happened here uh, because but we were dating at that time. But the marriage happened here because we were not able to get married while I was in Ethiopia, and then I was a refugee in Nairobi, Kenya, and I had a status, but marriage was a little bit complicated when you are a refugee over there. So once I get here, I got married, I think in 2015, I believe.
Can you tell me a bit more, like how how your life in Ethiopia was, and why did you decide to become a lawyer there, and how did you meet your wife, and things like that, I guess.
Oh, cool. Life in Ethiopia was amazing. It's a very friendly country. I don't know if you've been there, but Ethiopia is a very friendly country. We would like to do things together. We eat together. We have fun together. So life was not that bad. Uh, the reason I left was due to politics. That's all. I graduated from law school, started practicing law. I was a junior. I was not making that much money, but I was getting there, and I was loving what I did and what I was doing over there in the legal field before I left. So we are five. I have four brothers. Altogether, we have five. Big family. Mom and dad, full-time workers. My dad is a professor in a university. My mom was a nurse. Both retired now. So we were, so to say, a middle-class family. We had everything that we needed. So it was full of happy memories. Growing up in Ethiopia, going to school, going to college, everything was perfect until my dad starting participating in politics. And I don't know if you know about African politics. Once you get involved, it goes down to the family, even though we don't have anything involved in it. But it's a little bit an ugly politics over there. So that forced me to leave my country, the job I wanted. The reason why I want to be a lawyer is because of the injustices I see in my country here and there. And I didn't have a second thought when I chose to join the law school because that was my dream to defend, to help uh, the most vulnerable people, the most people who doesn't have voice, the people that needed help but doesn't necessarily have the finances to back it up. So that was my whole plan when I joined the law school, and I started doing it for some time before I left, and then the rest is history. I never went back to Ethiopia since I left in 2010, I believe. And I have plans to go with the kids and with everybody sometime next year, God willing. But life in Ethiopia was perfect. How did I meet my wife? My wife and my brother went to the same school, so I met her through him. Uh, she went to a college where my brother went in, so she used to come to our house just because she's a friend of my brother's, and that's where it all started. And before you know it, we start dating, and at some point she become a flight attendant, and we got disconnected uh, because I'm located in Ethiopia. Uh, I was practicing law, a little bit busy with everything. She was flying all over the world. Then at some point, I left Ethiopia, and we got disconnected for some time, but reconnected uh, along my journey. And then kids, the firstborn was uh, she got born, the firstborn, and then when she decided to move to the U.S., we we had our two childrens.
And was it like difficult for her to follow you to the United States, given that you had to leave, right? Ethiopia, it wasn't safe for you, I guess, right, because of your father's career. But like she didn't have those restrictions, I guess, right?
No, not really, because at that time we were only dating. There's no documentation to connect me to her, and it helped actually. Her being a flight attendant, I was in Nairobi, Kenya, so she visits me as often as possible. One, because Nairobi and Ethiopia are 1 hour and 45 minutes apart by plane. Two, you don't need visas or that sort of complication to come to
Mhm.
Nairobi, and so it was not difficult. Long distance relationship was difficult because there will be a lot of miscommunications, there will be a lot of misunderstandings along the way, that's for sure. But in terms of what we want to do with our life, in terms of taking the next step in our relationship and that sort of things, there was not much of a problem just because I am relocating to Nairobi and she's back in Ethiopia. So there was no issues, but there will be miscommunication and misunderstanding here and there, minors that will be fixed through communication, talking, and that sort of things.
And um, tell me about your life in Kenya when you were waiting for your refugee status to come to the United States. What did you do? How did you feel? And what is going on?
Oh, 2 years, almost 2 years was a very, very interesting journey for me that shaped up my life. Uh, while I was in Ethiopia, everything was provided. I didn't have any issues whatsoever in terms of finances, in terms of, living accommodations, whatever you mention it, I had it. But when I moved to Nairobi and become a refugee, reality kicks in. I was on my own. Uh, I didn't have anybody to support me over there. I have to learn each and everything, starting from the language. I almost forgot it now, but I was okay communicating with the language that was spoken there, the Swahili language, and I have to start from the scratch. And at some point, my application was denied.
Oh.
My application was denied. I have to appeal.
Mhm.
I didn't use lawyers or I didn't use any legal pro bono whatsoever to lodge my appeal. I did it myself, and finally I was approved and considered as a refugee there. But 2 years there, I created connections that will last for a lifetime. I learned about myself. I learned about how to overcome struggles because it's not easy. It's not easy. Nairobi, Kenya is a beautiful country. It's a beautiful city, but you have to have that hustle mentality to navigate through um, the city or the country, because everything is about money. Everything rolls about, I mean, everywhere is about money, but it's a bit different over there. So you have to be street-wise, street smart to survive. You have to be cautious of your every move, and you have to choose your friends wisely. You have to know where you're going, what your next step is. If you don't know those things, there will be some complications and there will be some problems, because in my 2 years over there, I met folks that been there for 10 years because of simple errors, simple things that they failed to follow, which I was fortunate enough to follow and to get out of the country sooner than those people who are there. How did I got there? How did I get out of that country? Is hard work, follow up, and connections, and also praying, a lot of praying, because it's not easy. Because in the eastern part of Africa, the refugee camp that's there in Nairobi, Kenya, is one of the largest in the world. And you can imagine how many people they will process every time. So it's
So
not
it's like a
easy.
hub for refugees
Yes,
for the
in the
Kenya.
whole of Africa, in the
Mhm.
whole of eastern part of Africa, is the biggest
Mhm.
one. So you can imagine how many people they process every day, coming from Ethiopia, neighboring countries, Uganda, everywhere, who want to be relocated to the U.S., Europe, or Canada. So it was not easy, but it was a very good learning curve for me that shaped me up as a man to navigate certain things in life and how to deal with that.
Can you like give an example of such things? Like, so it was like it can be a dangerous city from what you're talking about, right? It's
Mhm.
especially since you were not from there and you didn't have like a support network. So did you have to work there? Like, where did the money come from?
Um, yes, for my brother was here, so he help out whenever he can.
In the United States. He was
Yes,
in. Oh, okay.
here
So
in
your
America.
brother could send you. And how old were you, by the way?
I think 24.
So you're pretty like a young man, pretty much like a very
Yes,
young man. Okay,
yes.
and you were in a
So
strange country, like a foreign country, and you pretty much like you could rely on the financial support of your brother, right?
because I know how people live in the United States, I didn't expect much. I have to hustle myself. So he helped out whenever he can, and I appreciate that. But for the most part, I used to do two jobs. So the institution, the organization that brought me here, the IRC, needs translators because they were a lot of Ethiopian community there who needs a translation from English to Amharic. So I used to work part time with them. And also, I worked as a community organizer of the Ethiopian community over there with a local NGO called Kito Tasheria, which means Justice for All in Kenyan language. I work with them also to mobilize, to help out the Ethiopian community in Nairobi, Kenya. Well, this didn't happen overnight. Like I said, no support system there, so I have to navigate certain things to get these jobs. But yeah, my brother supported me, but for the most part, I make my own money over there after some certain period of time. Maybe you can say um, 6 months after I was there, I was starting making my own money to support myself. But everything expensive. Whatever I'm making, it doesn't make ends meet. So what I do is I live with a roommate. We share everything. So I did, and also I joined a church, and then they gave me, you know, a room until I become on my own 2 feet. So I use different avenues to stand on my own 2 feet until I come to the US.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and your dad stayed in Addis Ababa.
Yes, he is a famous guy. So
Mhm.
whatever happens to him is easy for the media to catch it and
Mhm.
to put it on the air, and there will be some sort of pressures.
Mhm.
So even though his opportunities are limited, they start to stop him from going to school to teach. They
Mhm.
started closing his business by creating unfair competition uh, with businesses of the same
Mhm.
kind like his. They started to do those stuff, but he was in Ethiopia. He still is in Ethiopia right now.
Okay, and were you close with your dad?
Yes, very close. We all are very close.
And like how did you feel like being away? I'm just kind of curious about this whole process of you deciding that, hey, I'm gonna leave the country because I have to do that, I guess, right? So
Yes.
can you just recall what were your thought process? Do you have any doubts? And did you understand what lies ahead of you? What kind of path is that? Or like how did you even know about this opportunity
What opportunity are you talking
to
about?
apply for asylum, like for
Oh,
refugee status? Yeah.
um, before I started my own practice, I was working at a law firm
Hmm.
in Ethiopia, and uh, Nairobi. I mean, the Kenyan Airways was one of our clients, and I had some free tickets to use. So that's my way out. One thing I used is to use my free ticket to go to Nairobi. I didn't know about the asylum system, the resettlement system, whatever. I didn't know anything about it. What triggered me to leave my country is I applied for a job. Okay, I applied for a job, and it's for an assistant judge job in a lower court. Okay, I did pass my exam to get the job and to be shortlisted, but there was this guy that was following me in law school, and I know him, he knows me. Is a security agent of the government, and I met him over there when I was out there to get my results, and he told me point blank, "Hey, do you think you're gonna get that job when your dad was doing this and that to this country?" And I was like, "This had nothing to do with my dad. I applied for a certain job, I passed the exam, and I'm shortlisted. I will do the interview. If I pass, I will get the job." It doesn't have anything related to my dad, but he he was pretty sure that he'll get me out of those lists, the short list, and which, by the way, he did. So I decided uh, this thing is not going to stop until I stopped it. And at that point, there's no way for me to stop it. There's no way for my parents, my family, friends, anybody to stop it because it's like you against the government. So the only way for me that I see fit at that time was to leave the country and try to get uh, somewhere where I can freely, freely leave
Mhm.
without any fear of future persecution. So didn't know anything about Nairobi, Kenya. The only thing I chose Nairobi, Kenya is because I have a free ticket. I grabbed those free tickets, jump on the plane. I got my backpack, left, and never looked back.
Wow. So
Yeah,
it was a good luck, I guess, that it was a center for refugees at least, right? Like a
yeah. I didn't have any information whatsoever.
wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And is Ethiopia a corrupted country? Well, I come from a country which is corrupted, so like the opportunities you kind of mentioned that you were lacking is something that could happen like in my country as well. You know, in terms of somebody who's stronger and better connected being able to destroy you, I guess.
Hmm. Um, to a certain extent, yes. If you don't mess with the government or anybody who's in the higher position, you can live your life. If you're a businessman, you can do your business. If you are, whatever sector you are engaged in, you can do that until the time uh, you mess with the government. If you mess with them, they will go for you, your family, your relatives, your friends, whoever you connected to will be affected. That's what happened for me and my family. We were okay until my dad started participating in this politics, and then things changed. And then after that, everybody had to decide for themselves, which I did.
Um, so tell me about the process of applying for refugee status. Was it difficult? You are a very educated man and you come from a great family and you went to law school. Okay, so I guess you were a bit more privileged than
Yep.
an average refugee, I would guess, right? But still, could you just describe the whole process, how it was for you? Like, do you, like step by step? Like, did you fill an application, then you wait, then like what is a background check and so on?
Yeah. So when you first arrived, the first thing you have to do, once you figured out you have to be registered, is registered through UNHCR, the United Nations Human Rights Commission for Refugees. You registered there, and they give you a kind of card, a waiting list card, where they will call you for a mini interview. So I was registered, and I was called after some time to fill out questionnaires, some about 10 or 12 questionnaires. Then, once you fill out those questionnaires, then based on your answers, your refugee determination will be based on those answers. If if they feel that you fulfill the criteria of being a refugee, they will approve your refugee status and they'll give you a card, a refugee card, and they'll give you an option to live in the city, Nairobi, or to move to the camps, which is outside Nairobi. So I filled it. Then, like I told you, I was denied.
So what kind of questions are there? Can you remember some of them? And
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
basically the same kind of questions that I see on the I-589 forms here. What will happen to you if you go back to your country? Why did you leave your country? Do you feel there will be future persecution if you go to your country? How did you leave your country? The reason why you think the government is, following you or coming after you, that sort of questions like that, which are pretty standard and pretty easy to answer if you already have those issues in with you. So I was rejected. I was shocked because I know I have a case in my hand, and I have evidences to prove that I am going through a very difficult time, not because I choose to, just because the government thinks I am endangering their, their power, so to say. So I appealed. The appeal process took some time because when I discovered the Nairobi, the Nairobi office have a tendency to deny applications because of the overwhelming application they receive. So they don't go uh, through the answers uh, uh, just like they're supposed to determine whether somebody is, eligible to be a refugee or not. But I lodged my appeal. I provided evidences, personal evidences, country reports, and my dad's information as well. Even though it took some time, and finally it was approved. Once it's approved, there's a waiting game because when you are approved, you will be put into a big pool of approved individuals, and a third country will pick those people to resettle to whichever country they have to go. For example, I was resettled to the US. People I know were resettled to Canada, Australia, Denmark, Holland, everywhere.
so
So
you didn't get to choose where you go. The country has to
you,
pick you.
when your time comes, they will give you two choices. I had the choice to go to Denmark, uh, and the Netherlands, and then USA. But the tricky part is you have to take your chances when they are when they were presented to you. If you skip, for example, in my case, the first country that was presented to me was the Netherlands. I did the plus and minus. I have to learn a new language. I have to do this. I have to do that. No, that's not for me. I rejected. The second one came 8 months along the way. So it might not come that soon. You might wait a year or two for the second chance to come. And the second one that came in was Denmark. I rejected it again because I wanted to go to a country that is English speaking, because I can jumpstart my life without worrying about language barrier. So, and thirdly, the U.S. came in. I took that opportunity. I had to go through two full day interview with the U.S. With the U.S. officers regarding my case, and then finally, I was resettled to the U.S. in 2013.
What were the American officers asking you?
Pretty much the same. Why did you come here? How long you been here? What's your educational background? Uh, do you have any criminal history in the past? Political involvements? Who are your family, parents, siblings? What happened to you if you go back? the usual asylum questions, but in great details, in great details. So I did it that for 2 days in a row, and then you have to do medicals. You have to do medicals. When I was there in 2013, I believe if you have HIV and um, what's the other one?
Tuberculosis.
Yeah, I think so. Yes,
Mhm.
there will be an additional 6 or 7 months wait time before you start the medication. You for the TB, you have to be cleared. For the HIV, you gotta start the medication and stuff like that. So the medical process by itself also had its own stress because you never know, you really never know. So I never did medicals for 2 years, almost 2 years since I left my country. I didn't know my status and stuff like that. It's not like I was running around, but you never know. So the medical process by itself was a stress. And after that, there also the issue of when you'll be leaving. Be- because after you do your medicals, there have to be a plane that can take you to wherever you're going. And for that plane to be ready, they have to work with the Kenyan government, with the US government, and a lot of logistics have to go through there. And that's also some waiting time. So you're not guaranteed until you step on that plane.
Oh, so
Because
you cannot like buy yourself like a ticket, let's say, and
no,
go.
they will pay for you and you pay them back once you get here. What happened is they pay for my plane ticket and everything. And the organization that paid for me was called IOM, I think International Organization for Migration or something like that. So they pay for your plane ticket. And once you get here, once you got your first job, they will start to get their money. Like you can set up your system to pay them $50 every paycheck and stuff like that until you finish your whatever they own you. Because what happened is whatever you pay to them will goes to the next person to come to America or wherever, and that guy will pay back, and the next person from Africa or from the refugee camp will travel with that money, and so that's how they help us to get where we want to go. So until you reach to that plane, you're not sure because there was instances in the past I was not. I was shocked to hear that people were at the last stage. They did their medicals and they had to wait more than 2 years to leave the country. And there were people that died in between, waiting for that plane to arrive. So we were not sure. Every stage have its own stress, and whenever you go from one state to the other, it's also a time to say thank you, God. I just made it to the next step. So until you step into that plane, it's always it's always tough.
So, what was it your first time when you stepped out of that plane when you saw United States? Did you ever visit your brother before, or it was the first time?
No, I never been to the U.S., but I've been to Dubai, China, and stuff like that, other countries, South Africa and stuff. Uh, but never been to the U.S. That's my first time.
So, what were you? Where did you arrive, by the way? Where did that plane fly to?
New York is my first stop, and my brother used to live in New York, so uh, it was a crazy city for me, coming from Ethiopia, coming from where I was in that
What was
refugee.
your first impression when you arrived?
Uh,
By the way, what month was that? What
it
time?
was in May. It
May.
was
Okay.
yeah. It was in May. It was a little bit chilly and stuff, and it was New York. Everything is busy. Everything is in a rush. So right there and then, I decided New York is not the place for me. I need something quieter. I need something that's calm where I can think. brainstorm, my moves and everything. So I was like, the first thing I asked my brother was, "How can you live in this kind of city, man? It's so hectic. It's so fast. Everybody is like, you know, so in a rush mode." So I stayed there for a couple of months, and then my mom happened to come here, and she told us to move into Maryland. And it took a lot of convincing to my brother because he was living here in New York for a good 2 3 years, and he is used to that environment. But we moved to DC, then Maryland, then life goes on. We're here now.
And okay, so did you so you had your brother, so you had some support system right away. Is it a younger brother, older brother?
As an older brother.
Older brother.
Yeah.
So and your mom was able to come as well. So
Yes.
you had a bit of a like you had some familiar faces at least. Did like does this whole process like kind of provide you with housing or kind of some kind of support? Like I don't know, some meetings, some explanations, some courses, anything, Medicaid.
Um, well, the resettling organization covered my Medicaid, my housing, everything for a good 8 months. So I didn't have to worry about anything until I resettled, got my green cards and everything. So then I start looking for jobs. I start using the metro, learning the metro, how to use the metro, my area, what's the environment and everything. So the first 8 months I was covered by the organization. They pay my rent, and they give me food stamps. They take care of I get Medicaid as a refugee, and they're also helping me with courses to get job placement and stuff like that. I attended a couple of courses before I start applying. So the resettlement process was smooth. One, because my brother was here, mom flew in, and also the organization that brought me here were very organized and very detail oriented in attending the sponsor, the people they sponsor. So it was easy. Then it's on me to find out what I want to do, where I want to go, because 8 months is more than enough as far as I'm concerned. It's enough to figure out what your next move will be.
Mhm. So you're living in Maryland. That's when you brought your future wife, right?
Yes, she used to come and go before we decided to move because she was a flight attendant. By the time I get here, she was a flight attendant. She comes to the U.S. every month. Uh, but we decided at some point, uh, this long distance relationship have been going on for a while now. What do you think about resettling to the U.S.? It was not. It was not the ideal situation for her because she loves her job and stuff. It had to take a lot of convincing. It had to take a lot of, you know, uh, talks, conversations happened, and then finally she decided to move in 2015, I believe, as the time. I was here in 2013. Yeah, it took almost 2 years for her to say yes. Okay, let's start over here.
Oh, okay. And tell me about your job as a paralegal. Yeah, you first at the organization, right? It was a nonprofit, and then at IS law firm.
Yes.
Um, do you enjoy it? Do you have aspirations to become a lawyer, like start your law firm, or just talk to me about, and also the difference between like law in the United States and law back home in Ethiopia. And
Mhm.
I also would love you like need to touch on a very sensitive issue of racism, but if you're comfortable like talking about that as well, if that's something that you experienced or like you want to talk about. go ahead as well.
Oh, okay. I love the law profession. I have dreams to become a lawyer one day. When I started living in the United States, my first plan was to go to a law school, get the education I needed to sit for the bar exam.
Mhm.
But I later found out that I have to add 2+ years of law school credits
Mhm.
to sit for a bar exam because the law education that I took in my country is totally different from what's been taught here. So pretty much I need 2+ years of US law to sit for the bar exam. So at that time was not an option for me from financial standpoint and everything because I had plans to bring my kid and my wife to the US and stuff like that. There's a lot of things going on. So I hold that, and then I started to learn about this paralegal job, which is basically assisting the attorneys in getting the much needed experience you might get to sit for the exam and also to get familiarized with the US law system. My specific area of interest is immigration law. So whenever I apply for a job, I try to get a job that is close to immigration law. And I was lucky on both occasions when I work in clinic, Catholic legal, and also here at IS law firm. Both positions I hold is close to immigration law. So the difference between clinic and uh, IS law firm is clinic works mostly with Catholic churches and bringing the Catholic Church priests, deacons, sisters to the U.S. and the 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 area they cover in terms of immigration law is limited and in
So these are like
IS.
R1 visas, EB1.
Yeah, the R1 visas and stuff like that, or the work permits, sometimes the naturalization and green card application. And here in ICE law firm, the exposure, the opportunity to learn more about the immigration law is humongous, and that's why I switched from clinic to IS law firm. I love what I do. There are parts, that frustrates you at times, but for the most part, just like every other job, I love what I do. I love helping people. At the end of the day, is helping people when you help them with their immigration matter. So I'll be happy to see them smile at the end of every successful immigration petition or whenever they get a green card, work permit, and when they're excited about their, the next step is a plus for me as a paralegal.
Do you have some kind of like a process, like, some kind of like things you do if somebody gets like a work permit? Do you call them or, like email them? Like, do you have some specific things you kind of take joy in?
Yeah, yeah, I always believe in connecting with people. Email is good, texting is good, all sort of the social media stuff is good, but it's never better ways to connect as much as you can in person. If not, call them and talk to them because it will create that human element. To talk to someone, to hear them, to respond to their questions, and to tell them that it will be fine, it will be okay, or if it's a success story, to congratulate them, to wish them, the best, and also to connect with them in a different, environment, another application, or maybe some other things. So yeah, I always choose to connect. choose to call, even though sometimes it's not the best thing to do when it comes to immigration um, processes, because one question will have a ton of follow-up questions, and that will take up your time. You can clear it up with a simple email, but as much as I can, I try to connect, talk, and make them feel that they are in the best hands.
Um, do you, do some of the clients know that you're a refugee yourself and you went through a similar process? If, of course, if
Uh,
they're asylum seekers.
I don't know. I read my profile that you guys posted on Facebook.
Mhm.
If they follow that, maybe they might know, but my accent is a little bit strong. They can figure out that I'm not from here. So, but there was no um, instance where we discuss about me becoming a refugee,
Mhm.
but probably they might suspect, but no, I don't think so.
Interesting. And do you ever like so if you see like a case in front of you helping with, and do you ever think, oh wow, these people if they went like to a lawyer as opposed to like try to do it themselves, like go to a consultant or somebody, they'll be in so much better hands. So like you, if you see some people who messed up the immigration process, uh, what are your feelings? Like, what do you think?
I didn't get your question.
So like, do you ever wonder, like, if you see a case which was kind of like messed up by somebody, like by somebody else, do you ever
Yeah.
think, God, like, I wish like more people had access to like,
Mm,
good legal services or like access to this information at all?
mm. Yeah, it happens every now and then. The Ethiopian community in DC, Maryland, and Virginia is huge, and for some reason, they tend to go to places that do things by not as a profession, but by experience. And I have come across in the past people who got a messed up case, and I helped them to refer their cases to people I know. And it pains me so much because once your immigration process go left, to make it right, you pay more in terms of finance, psychologically, and in every way you might think of. It's going to be a burden on you until that things got fixed. When you can, fix it by going to the right person or to the right organization that have the experience, the knowledge to guide your case to be where it's supposed to be. Yeah, when because immigration is sensitive, unless you're too close to that individual, they don't let you in on their matter,
Hmm.
so to say. But I have instances in the past where I get I saw a messed up case, which would have been avoided, but was messed up due to a choice that the person made, maybe from a financial standpoint, or maybe because it was referred to that individual who messed up his case, or maybe he knows that the guy have been working that kind of thing, but he didn't know he have the expertise to work on such matters. But yeah, whenever I can, if I see one, I try to jump in and help out. But like I said, immigration is very sensitive. You have to be close to that guy.
Do you have any advice, like, kind of just comment to those people who are considering like starting an immigration process, or like maybe planning to come to the United States, or maybe they're here but like status and they're undocumented, let's say. Um, do you want to tell something?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do your research. It's easy. We are now in the 21st century. Everything is on the internet. You don't have to be in a situation where you cannot get out of by not doing that simple Google search. If you have immigration issues, there's pro bono service providers who are lawyers and attorneys and stuff. That's the least you can do. But don't jump the gun and go, by your emotions and get yourself in a situation that you will be it will be very difficult for you to get out. So always my advice is, hey, your phone is the most powerful thing that you have in your pocket. Do your research, take your time, and if you want to hire a lawyer, don't just hire him, vet him. See what he did, read his ratings. You know, um, that will tell you what you're getting yourself into. So, doing your research, googling stuff, and trying to take your time before you make a decision will save you a lot of money and stress along the way, because once it goes left, there's a lot of money and stress that will make it right.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, David. It was
No
really,
worries.
really great. I really loved, recording this.